Today I'm going to show you an amazing watercolour technique by using food wrap, in other words cling film, with watercolour. Yeah, let me show you what I mean. And we'll also make a greeting card at the same time. So let's get the brushes wet and let's get started. I want to make a greetings card first of all using this technique, this lovely cling film technique. I'll be using some graphite back paper to slide underneath the printout and trace the image through to the watercolour surface. You can of course just use a normal soft leaded pencil on the back of the printout and trace it through that way instead. I'm also using a mechanical pencil with a 2H lead. Remove any surplus graphite using a putty eraser. You don't have to rub with these, just tap. Now I tend to use a separate water pot when I'm working with masking fluid, and that's because I don't want to taint my normal water pot, which is the container which I'll be washing my brushes in, and also bar of soap. Why? Well, if you brush your damp brush through that bar of soap, that will help preserve those bristles, but just a word of warning, always use a very old brush, one that's destined for the bin, because invariably when you use masking fluid, it can ruin that brush. However, there are many other methods you can use to apply masking fluid. I do have a playlist on using masking fluid. I'll pop a link to the top right hand corner of the screen for you. The brush I'm using today is a size 00. I'm also going to be using a dip pen for this, and that's mainly for the lettering because it's so fine, isn't it? Now these dip pens are available on the internet, so it's worth looking there for it, and they all come with different nib sizes as well. Some are calligraphic, some are just pointed little nibs for writing with and drawing with. And it all depends on the ones that you choose, and there's a good variety on the internet. Just have a look at those usual shopping channels. I'm sure you'll find them. But they do take a little bit of getting used to, so bear that in mind. And you do have to use it fairly swiftly, because that masking fluid will start to dry on that nib. Once you've filled in the bird of prey on the lettering, there's something completely different, and that's by splattering, just by flicking that nib on the top of that paper. I'm after little tiny splatter marks all over this paper, because that will also give you that extra texture as well. Now, depending on where you live, you would say something like food wrap or cling film. What do you call it where you live? Let me know in the comments down below. And all I want is a small piece of this, which I can crinkle up first of all. Make sure the size is a little bit more than you need to go over the top of that painting. I grabbed myself a size 8 watercolour brush, and then using a variety of colours, I'm going to add plenty of colour on that paper. I want this background to be really colourful and a little bit deep as well, because I want to outline that bird of prey afterwards. Bearing in mind that watercolour very often dries out a little bit lighter, but you of course can use paler colours just to give you a much more subtle effect. Use a piece of kitchen roll to clean up the edges around the painting, and once you've done that, very lightly apply that cling film over the top. I like to kind of walk my fingers up it every now and then, so I can move some of that cling film around in different positions as I do so, and then leave it to dry. Now there's other things you can use the cling film idea for, and here we've got the background texture for a rock and also wood, and I'm sure there's plenty more subjects out there that you can use it for. As per usual, you want to get plenty of colour on that paper first, okay? And for the effect to stand out, you want that colour to be more of a mid-tone at least. So a little bit of light tones here and there, and the mid-tones on there as well. Because if you haven't got the mid-tones on there, you find that the effect is not quite as striking. Then leave that to dry again. I also want to investigate whether or not this will work with a graded wash and also a variegated wash. So let's just start off with a single colour, a little bit of reddy blue colour which I've mixed up here. Oh, and by the way, this is all just leftover paint from another project. If you can, try not to wash that paint away down that drain. Just think to yourself, what else can you use this paint for? Because after all, when you need to restock your paints, it can cost a pretty penny here and there, can't it? Then lay that cling film over the top of it, as simple as that. Just like we've already done. Once it's dry, we can go back to our rocks. Well, look at that. Yes. The rocks work really well, don't they? And that's just the background details as well as that wood. Then what we can do now is tidy up the details within that rock. So you can make up the details as you go along. Think about where, for example, the light source is coming from. In this case, it's more or less from the 2 o'clock direction. Do the same with the wood as well. Think about wood texture, horizontal lines, a few highlights here and there as well. And that's all by using that cling film for the background effect. And you can see that even with those details over the top, that background really does stand out. As for the graduated wash and also the variegated wash, you can see straight away the effect that you get. Impressive, isn't it? And every time you do this, it's completely different. Now for the card with our bird of prey image over the top. First thing we need to do is obviously remove that cling film very slowly and look at the effects that you're going to get from this. And because every one we do will be different, you never know what you're going to get until you lift that cling film off. Because it's all nice and dry, I can now remove all that masking fluid off the paper using a very, very dry finger. Just make sure that you don't get any natural oils off your hands on that watercolour paper, because if you do, that will then act like a wax resist and that paint will not soak into that paper surface. Then using a size 00 brush, I wanted to go around my congratulations wording. I just want to make it stand out that little bit more. Then fill in that bird of prey, nice and dark. Even though that looks very dark, I have got a white gel pen. And this one is a Uniball Signo Broad. I find it's not pure white, this pen, but it's not far off. It's a bit of an off-white colour really. But it's ideal for putting little highlights on here and there. And for this I'm going to simply draw around that bird of prey. I can also tidy up the lettering as well. I can also make that lettering stand out that little bit more by adding some colours over the top. You see, because we've got more of a permanent white pen on the paper, that will help the colours stand out that little bit more. How you do this is entirely up to you. If you don't want to paint the words on there, you can simply use some stickers instead. Warm up that masking tape around the edge of the card, then very slowly remove it away from that painting. And that's because if it does tear the paper, you want the tear to be away, not into the painting, if you know what I mean. And there you go. As you can see, my bird of prey is slightly off centre, but you know what? I still think it's quite effective, don't you? Now for more watercolour techniques and tricks, have a look to the link to the top right hand corner of the screen. Hopefully I'll see you there.